we see so many players take their grip incorrectly because they take it at the ball. So it encourages that as well.
A little 2 for 1.
Yeah, exactly. Thanks for tuning in, guys. Kerrod Gray here on the range today at the Osprey Point Golf Club in Boca Raton at the Don Law Golf Academy. I'm standing next to Eric Corgono, one of the most prolific YouTube golf instructors out there. He's got a whole bunch of fantastic content that matches up nicely what I have on my channel as well. So I'm excited to get stuck in with a bunch of different topics. We're gonna go and have a little bit of back and forth about some of the most exciting principles that we implement into our teaching that has achieved the greatest results. Eric, thanks for coming along, mate.
Yeah, absolutely.
Looking forward to it. Let's get stuck in. Love it, love it. So when you're working with players, what are some of the most common takeaway errors that you see?
Yeah, I would say the overwhelming takeaway issues would be some combination of hands out and definitely club in and roll.
Yeah, big time, big time.
You see that, something like that?
All the time, all the time.
Yeah.
And what would be one of your favorite drills to kind of work on that?
So if I had nothing like with me, I really like for the player to reference where the butt of the club is.
Yeah, okay.
As a starting point.
Yeah, I've seen you do this a lot, right? And you get it tracking a little bit more in towards.
Yeah. So I think for the hands out part,
Yeah.
you know, I might throw a tee or something in the butt of the club.
Yeah.
And reference if my grip is, you know, an inch away from my thigh, the sensation is that grip end is essentially going to hit the thigh.
Yeah.
Now, of course, if the player comes from out here,
Yeah.
feeling like they're in here is going to make it fairly neutral. Like that butt of the club might just stay on the line.
Yeah.
And then the reference of where the butt of the club points I found very effective. So, you know, when I set up, if the butt of the club points at like my left hip-ish, when I get from set up to about right thigh, that butt of the club should still be pointed towards the like belt line.
Yeah.
Compared to
Out.
you know?
So I use a drill for a multitude of players, and it doesn't matter if it's just the club working behind. It could be they're losing connection underneath their lead arm. So if you set up to the ball, right?
Yeah, that's a good one.
You could still have the club head tracking outside your hands in the backswing, but then you lose this connection here. We see that all the time. So people would get the club head rolling inside the hands, and they would go, well, okay, let's just get the club head out, but then we're missing this key point here, right?
I literally had a lesson like that this morning, online lesson, yes.
It's crazy, huh?
Yep.
Crazy. So one of the best drills that I use to solve not only the hand path and the club head, so it gets orbiting around the body a little bit better, right?
Yeah.
But also in regards to ensuring that we're keeping this pressure point intact in the backswing, which is going to help us get depth to our swing, right?
And that's like my left arm on my butt.
Correct. So jump over here for me. What I do is I get an alignment stick and I place it underneath the lead arm. Now, when you do this, it's very important that you're not tucking your arm by your side. So you're gonna have your lead arm extended and you put it to a point where, relative to the length of it, I would have about that much coming out the back of my arm, right?
Okay.
And then I put my hand in this position so I can feel it squeezing right underneath my armpit. And you'll see a lot of pro golfers when they play, they do this with their shirt.
Yeah.
And a lot of the time,
I thought that was showing off the muscles.
yeah, I know, right? A lot of the time, it's to keep the pressure or the sensation of that throughout the swing.
And that would help with like the arm depth, hand depth.
Correct. Because as soon as we lose that, we generally see that the hand path would tend to go up. Right?
See it all the time.
Yeah. So one of my favorite drills to work on this is what we do is we get an alignment stick, we place it underneath the lead arm, and we get the top end of it. Now, it's important that when you set this, you set it up in front.
Okay.
Because it's very challenging when you do it down on the ground because it's going to feel like you're always trying to push it down all the time.
Okay.
Now, a little side note is also helps set the grip correctly. We see so many players take their grip incorrectly because they take it at the ball, so it encourages that as well.
A little 2 for 1.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
And it's on the grip. Now, you got to place it on the grip here because if you put it on the shaft, it's going to slide around too much.
Okay.
So it's on the grip, and then you put your backhand on the club. Now, getting into the setup position. And it's not really a hit ball exercise, but it's certainly a dry drill. You can do this a couple of times every day to work on the feeling.
Yeah.
But what we're trying to do is we're trying to achieve the feeling of keeping the sensation of this alignment stick tucked under the lead arm.
Love it.
But also the alignment stick staying on the grip, okay?
Yeah.
Now, if you've never done this before, it's okay to just kind of put your index finger there and just get the sensation that you're keeping it on. But you can see how this stays tight the entire time, doesn't it?
Yeah.
And by doing that and having the club in that position, well, now we can start to see that very traditional aesthetic that we see with the club head covering the hands from the down the line view. Now, the reason that I like this is it really stops you trying to cheat the system at all. So, for example, if I take the golf club away and I get very handsy and the club head rolls in.
Oh, okay.
Immediate feedback.
Yeah, perfect.
Immediate feedback. And then also in the same sense, as soon as we lose that point of connection and my arms start to lift, well, the stick's just simply,
Oh, that's good.
it's gonna drop out.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah, so I love it. So it's a little bit challenging at first, but we'll get you to come in. What we're gonna do is we're gonna tuck it underneath that lead armpit.
Yeah.
You're gonna hinge the golf club up in front of you, and just for you at home, this here is about the angle that you're gonna set up with. And you just guide it down into the address position. Once you've done it a couple of times, it's pretty easy. And then you're just getting the feeling very slowly of moving the golf club back into this position here. Now, as soon as you go any further than that, well, then it's always gonna come off because the hands are lifting.
Okay.
So it's very much a takeaway exercise.
The first part of it.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, let me give it a heck.
So let's jump in there.
Cool. So under the lead arm, maybe a foot or so of it back.
Yeah, correct.
Like that.
Perfect.
And then this goes on the grip.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh yeah, I can see what you're saying about the grip, putting your grip on too.
Yeah.
That like forces my hand on there correctly. Heck, that's a pretty good drill just for that.
Yeah, I know, right?
Okay.
So
So
then
kind of here-ish.
the first couple of times, just put your index just on top. So you're guiding it down.
Okay.
Perfect. Get down into your setup position. And then just to get to the feeling of it, keep that index there.
Oh,
what
yeah,
I want
okay,
you to
yep.
do, you should feel quite an amount of pressure underneath the lead armpit.
Yep.
And you'll also see it on the back of the shaft. So what it's doing is it's actually creating a bit of flex in between these two.
Yeah, yeah.
And it's almost spring loading it.
Yeah, for sure.
So if then you slowly take your golf club away, you'll feel
Oh, yeah.
connection and you'll feel the club head want to stay outside of the hands. So if you then do this incorrectly and the club head moves behind the hands, straight away it comes
Yeah,
off.
right off the bat.
Right.
Oh, that's good. I like that.
Yeah.
I'll tell you what, it definitely forces my grip on there correct. That's interesting how much that forces that.
Yeah. I'd always tend to guide it down the first couple of times.
Yeah.
And then once you've kind of got it into position, just feeling it.
Yeah, just to get a sensation.
And it's great, and it's always very important when you're doing drills like this, you're matching it up with some sort of actual intent
Yeah.
from a golf setup. Because we see too many players, let's say they're going to do a few practice swings at home, maybe in the winter, or they're working on their game. They want to work in between the chances and the opportunities they get to go to the range, but they won't do it from a golf posture.
Now, are you okay if I do, like even for me from a bent over position, maybe I have too much of it this way. Are you okay if I held it like above the ball a little?
Yeah.
Like even just to get the same sensation?
Yeah,
That's
absolutely.
cool?
Because
Yeah.
if we're a player who tends to get the club head working too much around the hands in the first place, if you have a little bit more of this upward hinge of that hand path, well, you're just exaggerating the opposite.
Yeah.
So it's fine if you're a player that whips this thing inside.
Yeah.
You're going to see that separation. You're going to see the club head move inside. So starting there and just exaggerating, well, you'll start to see, relative to the drills that you were saying before, the end of the handle orbit more in and the club head stay more out. But you're also getting great grip and you've got that point of connection underneath the lead arm, which we know is so important for depth.
So kind of like the three biggies there to recap that, my left arm staying in versus out.
Yeah.
So less space between my left bicep and pec, let's say.
Correct.
My hands have kind of stayed on a neutral arc, or they're not going excessively out or really excessively in, kind of neutral-ish. And then, you know, I have a little bit of the preset hinge.
Yeah.
So if I had no hinge and my wrist was over flexed early,
Yeah.
I get to. And one of the things we did a video with Marty Nowicki, we were up in Orlando, and we were talking, hey, when is an inside takeaway okay versus not okay, et cetera. And this is the same vibe I get from this drill, which is, hey, so long as the butt of the club, or like my hands, or the handle, and the club head are more or less moving at the same rate,
Yeah, correct.
I got some good options from there.
Yeah.
It's when this like club head moves 3 feet, which I see a lot,
Oh, yeah.
and the handle moved an inch.
Yeah.
You know, and I always think that's interesting when I used to draw that in the beginning on a player. I draw a dot on the hands and a dot on the club head, and we're like, hey, dude, this club head moved 4
far.
feet,
Yeah.
and this moved an inch.
Yeah.
And you know, maybe for some players you need something, but I like to see, like if I take my setup position, the sensation that from setup until my hands get at my thigh, you know, my club head's going to travel a little bit farther, but I want to have the sensation that these two, it's also preset farther. I want to have the sensation that those are moving at the same rate. Is that, do you like that?
Yeah, if you jump in here for me, the way that I would explain that and just setting wrists, for example, let's say the takeaway, you generally see the professional golfer, they start to lose a little bit of this cupping and the face would be matching the spine angle by this stage of the swing. If you've got a functional grip and you're not holding it too tightly, but you are holding it securely, so you don't have too much tension, you'll find the weight of the club will naturally do that to your wrists anyway. Okay. Now, why I love this exercise is once we put this under and we pin it up against the grip and we take it into this position, it starts to really encourage the feel of what actually starts the takeaway. Right? So I can feel my rib cage turning on almost a diagonal as we take the golf club back, because if I'm standing up straight and I turn my rib cage, let's say if golf was played from a horizontal plane out in front of us, it's going to turn level to the ground, right? But as we bend down from the hips, there's going to be a certain incline to my posture. So therefore, as I swing back, I'm feeling the right side of my rib cage move up, and we can see that the club head and the hands are in line. And I really feel that through my torso.
Yeah, me too.
Whereas if I start trying to do this, well, we've lost that point of connection. And the pressure applied up against the front side of the grip and the lead arm is just a fantastic reference for that.
And you know, it's always interesting when you're doing it because it depends on where the player's coming from, right? Player A could be watching it and have a certain takeaway issue. Player B could have a different takeaway issue. We're talking about this, you know, hands out, club in pattern we see a lot.
Correct, yeah.
And so always with a takeaway, if we're coaching someone in person, you know, I would always look at like, hey, here's kind of a model.
Yeah.
So let's say club it even with the hands, face slightly tilted down, kind of down the toe line. And then see where you are relative to that. And then almost always to find center, you've got to feel some form of exaggeration in the opposite direction, right? So like when I'm doing that drill, my main takeaway, and as a neutral feel, it felt to me like my arms and hands were doing like nothing.
Oh yeah.
And I think that's a good starting point, but I know we would both agree if we had a player in front and they were doing that and still maybe going inside a little, they likely need to exaggerate more of the opposite pieces, meaning they might need to feel like their hands are going like really in.
Oh yeah.
And the club head's like really out. So I think just like adding that caveat as we go of, if we were giving you a lesson and you did this drill and it didn't do it enough, we would both go right in there and over exaggerate the opposite of your current issue to find center.
Because you could do this drill all day, every day for the next week, right?
Yeah.
But then as soon as you hit the golf ball, all those subconscious programs that your brain's been running to strike the ball, they're going to take over. Now, everything's a perishable skill. And if you're a player who the whole of your golfing life has had this separation and the role of the club working in, well, this is a great maintenance exercise that you can do during the winter. You can do a couple of reps at night, even if you don't feel like it's necessary. And like you said, you can start with the club pre-hinged even to this point, just so you're exaggerating.
Yeah, I like that.
Almost
like that too.
Matthew Wolff-esque of getting the club head moving so far out and the hands so deep, because as soon as you chuck that thing away and you hit the golf ball and you're focused on the target and the ball, you might feel like you're doing the same thing, but bam, straight away you can see within reason, your brain's still trying to coordinate that club to strike the ball.
And that's part of why, I mean, we can, again, like that's such an important conversation. It's just that any drill we give is designed to get to a neutral checkpoint, but then you have to hit a real ball. And you have to see what you actually did.
Correct.
And don't lose your mind if that drill feel wasn't what happened with the ball, because it ain't gonna be. And just see where the heck you are and exaggerate the opposite side of it, and things will change a lot faster.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So I really like that one. It's the first time that I've seen that in person. I saw the video, right, of you doing it. It's the first time I've seen it in person. And just like we talked about the early extension video, some of the other pieces is like getting started on the right foot, not in a literal sense, but like getting moving in the right way sets up so many other good things. So beautiful drill, dude. Love that one. Thanks, man.